what we can do is some kind of total physical response activities as we did, or exercises as I told you the other day. Like, for example, I'm going to tell you words that sound s. If you identify s, you put your hands up. If you don't hear s, you touch your nose, for example. And using the different languages you already know, any language in which that sound exists, you can do things like, for example, scissors, so they should put the hands up. I don't know, table, touch the nose. Shoe, nothing because there is no s in there. Zapato, nothing because there is no s in there. Mesa, yes, because there is in there, right? So in this practice activity with this total physical response, what we want is the students to be able to identify the sound within a word, all right? Only sound identification, because they haven't seen the grapheme yet, so they cannot link or map the grapheme onto the corresponding sound. So just identify the sounds in different words. And it is very important that you present the sounds in different positions, because one of the main problems that I found in all synthetic phonics methods or programs is that all of them present the sounds only in initial position. But children need to be aware that sounds can occur in different positions in the word, in initial, in medial, or final position, right? So this is why, by playing with them with these sort of physical response activities, in which you only say words and they have to identify the sound or the target sound you are practicing, that is a way of helping them to train the ear in order to be able to identify the sounds in different positions in the word. All right. A different thing would be when later on we start reading or writing them and we decide only to present them in initial position, in final position. I am more for presenting the sounds in many different positions, because they need to be able to recognize them wherever they are in the word. So scissors have got s at the beginning and s at the end and s in the middle, for example. While tables, there is only a s at the end of the word, and in sun there is only the sound at the beginning of the word. All right, but children need to be able to identify them in all positions. Right, so we did the teach, the practice, and the apply, in which you can ask your students, now, can you tell me a word that contains the s sound? And again, the majority of the students, if they didn't have any contact with the language before, will tell you in Spanish, all right? But as long as they are able to produce a word that contains the sound in Spanish, is because they are applying that knowledge. That is, they are identifying that in certain words that they already know, the sound s exists, okay? Then, to consolidate, we'll go again into the key word, sun, sun, sun. And if the program has got a song, this is the moment to present the song to students. So depending on the different programs, if it is Jolly Phonics, Phonics International, FOP's Phonics, etc., you or reader writing, some of them have got songs and some of them haven't. So it depends on your program. In the consolidation stage is where you should introduce the song, right? If your program doesn't have, the program you use doesn't have any songs, you can create them, all right? Because it is very easy. You can just pick up a tune, a traditional tune, or a very famous tune like Frère Jacques, for example, and use the same tune for all the sounds, if you don't want to be more innovative and creative and create different jingles, all right? But it is easy to do, all right? With melodies or tunes that you know your students know, I don't know, for example, from different songs that you sing to them, etc., you can create the songs yourself. And the last thing to do would be sun, sun, sun. It sounds sun, sun, and then we would finish the first session of phonics, and you can continue with your normal class. So this is why I told you that this takes no more than 5 minutes. The next session we would start the same way with the next sound, right? So we would present the next one. Apple, 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 right? We would do it again the same in the practice. That is, total physical response. We ask for applying what they know by asking them, can you tell me some word containing a, for example? And then we do the song, if there is a song. And then the last thing to do would be to present or uncover the grapheme, saying apple, apple, a. Apple sounds a, all right? And then we revisit the previous one, okay, by asking them, what do you remember? Who remembers these? Sun, sun. And then we start the further practice by asking children to reproduce or sound out what they can see here. Okay? The third week, the third session, we would do the same with always first covering the grapheme. Remember that the graphemes for children doesn't mean anything yet, all right, until they see that this grapheme is mapped or is linked to the sound that we are working. So this is why at the beginning this is completely unmeaningful for them. So we present only the keyword. We practice it a little bit. We do the application. Tell me some words that you know that have the t sound. Then the consolidation with the song and the gesture. In this case, teddy, cuddling the teddy, and the further practice. Well, the further practice. Sorry, before the further practice, revisiting the previous sound a from the session before, and then the sound e from the other session. So every time you introduce a new sound, it's very important that after introducing it, you make a revision of all the sounds that you have already seen. Okay? And it will come a moment from the third sound, because with three sounds, s, at, we can start doing some blending. So for example, we can show children t, t, and ask them, what can you see here? Ah, what can you see here? T, at. And we start with the finger routine that we saw the other day too. At. Remember to do it in mirror way, and remember that the thumb, that is the shortest finger, means the beginning of the word. And this is going to be very important for them for later on reading and writing, for the reading and writing direction, right? And another word that we can present them is, for example, tell me what can you see here? Sat. So it's very important that if you want your students to tell you sound by sound, that you point or present them just one by one, at. And when you want them to do the blending, you make the blending yourself also with your finger by making sat. Okay, for them to have clear in mind that sometimes we are demanding from them only the sounds, independent sounds, and some of the times we are demanding the full word, so we need a full blending. Okay, and the further practice, you will do it with some of the activities we're going to see later on. And then the revisit and review, remember, this is very important. So this is why these synthetic phonics methods or programs are all cumulative. You present one sound and you revisit the previous sound. If you present sound number 3, then you have to revisit the previous 2 sounds. If you present sound number 4, you have to revisit the previous 3 sounds. Okay, so that is the thing. And little by little, for example, here you have the card of the pa. Here I have different words with which we can start doing the blending. So here you have the answer to some of the questions someone did the other day. That was, when do you start doing blending? From sound number 3, all right? Once they see these 3 letter sounds, we can start with the blending. Okay, right. Let's move on then. So, 4 main aspects to take into account. First is the sound letter identification. That is, we present the key word, that is a word that contains the target sound. Then we practice it a little bit without seeing the grapheme yet, all right? We do some application to see if the children are able to identify the sound or if they are able to sound out words containing that sound, right? And then we start doing the blending. When is the blending important? Blending is more important from infants 4 on, pre-primary 4 on, right? So if in infants 3 you don't want to start blending so much, that's not a problem. In infants 3, what we have to do is basically train the children's ear in order for them to recognize and identify the letter sounds and the sounds when they hear them in different words. All right. So some teachers prefer leaving blending for later on, or once they finish the 44 sounds independently, start with the blending. That's up to you. That is not going to be any problem. But since when they are in infants 4, supposedly they have been already a whole year working with the 44 sounds, blending is going to be easier for them, and you can start with blending straight ahead. So depending on your group, you as a teacher know the group. You are the best person who knows the group. So depending on how strong your group is, you can start with blending with infants 3 or leaving it for later on. It depends on you, right? Then after blending and after children recognize the 44 sounds, then come those tricky parts of the English phonological system, which are the alternative spellings and the sound features and the tricky words, which are also necessary in order to read full texts, all right, and to carry on independent or to reach independent reading and writing. So those are 4 main aspects we should take into account when doing phonics. Another question that I remember from the other day was that someone asked me, do you follow exactly the same order in the phonics program? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Think about one thing. One of the issues we had at school at the beginning was, what sound are you going to start with? And I say, I have to start with S. And the class teachers began with with P, with U, depending on the textbook they had. All right. So hold on a minute, because I would like to see you all when saying this. Right. So that was an issue because they told me, but why do you begin with S? And then, if I were from Galicia, I asked them, then why do you begin with or with P? And the answer was, because in my book, in the course book they have, it begins with the And another teacher said, because in my course book, we begin with the P. And I say, well, in the case of phonics, there is a logical introduction of the sounds because of the frequency in which the sounds appear in the language. So the S sound is the most frequent in English. So this is why this is the first to be taught to children, because the sound they are going to find more and more in words. Then the first vowel to be found in English is A. All right. Then the third more frequent sound in English is T. So this is why they have this order. There is a logical order. Then, depending on the programs, you will find that all the programs begin with satapin. Satapin. Those 6 sounds are in all the programs present. All right. Then, depending on the program, some authors change them. Depending, some others begin with, in some programs, the next one begin after satapin, they begin with E, some others with some others with B, but satapin, that is in all programs. So what you have to make sure is that if you begin working with one specific program, please follow the order in which the sounds should be presented in that program. That is, if you have a teacher's guide or a teacher's book or whatever, follow that order. If you change to a different program, change to the order in that program, all right? But once you choose and you decide one, follow that order, because the author who wrote that program, the majority of phonics programs have been created by teachers, by primary teachers, even by special education needs teachers. So there is a logic in there. So if they follow that specific order, it's because of a reason. There is a reason behind them. Okay, so whatever the program you decide to do, stick to the program, not to the program, stick to the order in which the program recommends you to present the sounds. Okay? Right. Let's move on then. All right. Can you see it now? Can you see Can you see the slides?
No, not now.
Not now. So let me see.
Before the hello happened the same as
let me see what's going on again.
Before.
Yeah, but I don't understand why.
Sorry, Angela, I'm back now. I think you
Yeah.
need to double click on the.
I did. I'm clicking here.
And it doesn't appear.
In fact, I have you are presenting.
Okay, so now presentar ahora.
Okay, so here we are. Yes, this. Can you see it now?
Yeah, now perfect. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so as I told you the other day, before we start working with phonics, or before I start working with phonics with my children, one of the things we do is phonics gymnastics. And some people ask me, what are phonics gymnastics? Where phonics, what I call phonics gymnastics, this is something that I invented, is exercises to warm up all the muscles of the speech organs. All right. Why? Because they are muscles. So in the same way you go running or you go swimming or you go weightlifting or whatever, you have to warm up all your muscles to get them ready in order to the muscles to be foldable and bendable and movable enough in order to reproduce the sounds. Okay, so this is just silly things that I do with my students in class, with my children in class, by, for example, going pa 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 pa, ah, o, ah, eh, ah, e. So doing this kind of strange things, and they follow me, right? So they have to repeat what I say. What we do is warm up all the muscles to make them ready, to prepare them in order to reproduce the sounds correctly. So phonic gymnastics has to do with saying sounds randomly, all right, and exaggerating them a lot, so your children can see how much you open the mouth or how close you do it, depending on the different sounds you're reproducing. And the main aim is just to stretch the lips, to round them up, to move all the orbitals, that is the muscles around the mouth, in order to prepare them and to warm them up to produce the sounds correctly. Okay, that is the phonic gymnastics. Right. Let's go now into these practical activities that you can use to consolidate the letter sounds. So imagine that we have introduced, for example, up to the moment, 3 sounds, at, all right? And you want to consolidate them. So here you have a game, which is the fly sorters game. So what you can do is, with the same flashcards from the program or some letter cards that you can create, if you don't have a if you don't follow any strict program and you are creating your own resources and material, or even writing letters on the blackboard, or if you have an interactive whiteboard, just projecting them in there. What you do is divide the class in groups, right? And give the first in the line is given a fly swatter. You call out or you send out a sound, for example, I don't know, ah, and what they have to do is run and swat on the whiteboard, on the floor where you have the cards, the corresponding sound. Okay, and then to make it more difficult, once everybody had a go, to make it more difficult, what I do is I take the 4 last people in the lines and I whisper at the ear the sound. So they have to do Chinese whispers, that is, el teléfono es cacharrao, saying to the person in front of them the sound, and then this to the person in front, and this one to the person in front, until they reach the person at the front of the line with the fly swatter, and he or she has to go and swat the corresponding sound. This is funnier because usually the sound that they get at the end, that is the sound that the children with the fly swatter gets at the end, has nothing to do with the sound I told them at the beginning. So it is funny to see how they distort completely the sounds and play with the sounds. So this could be a game also to practice or to do the phonic gymnastics, all right? And the fly swatters game, for example, if you want to work, for example, in infants 4 or 5 blending, what I tell them is, for example, all right, please swat for me the word pen. So they have to go think about the 3 sounds that conform the word pen. So they have to segment pen into p, it, and go with the fly swatter and swat the 3 letter sounds that form the word pen. So this would be a little bit more advanced, all right? So with 3-year-olds, I do only this. I do this only with independent sounds, like swat b, swat o, swat ch, for example, all right? And with blending, with 4 and 5-year-olds, we do the blending, CVC words especially. Right. The carton box game, as you can see, this is very expensive, all right? A very, very sophisticated resource, which is an egg carton box, and I put some stickers in there with the sounds I wanted to work with. So what I do is put a marker in there. You have one of these Ludo markers, and we sit in a circle and we go passing by the egg carton box. So at the end, when I say stop, or if we usually do this by singing the songs, all right, the different phonic songs that we know. When I say stop, the child who's got the carton box in the hands has to shake it and then open it and see where the marker has landed. And he or she has to tell me the sound. So in this case, for example, you cannot see it, but it has landed in t, right? So they would tell me t. That gets 1 point, all right? Or that gives them 1 point. And I ask them, can you tell me any word in English containing the sound t? If they are able to tell me to say me the word in English, they get 2 points, sorry. And then the third and more challenging question is, can you tell me more words in English in which the sound appear? So little by little, they start using more and more the vocabulary they already know. Because at the beginning, the majority of them will tell you the key word that appears in the flashcard. But some others who are faster or who are stronger with the language will remember things that we do in class, like Tuesday, for example, if you do the routines, or Sunday if you go for sun, etc., etc. Right? So there are 2 levels to work in this game. Only say the sound and tell me 1 word, and then more challenging, tell me more words in English containing the sound. Then the find there. So here you have one of the examples that I told you about what I do in class with the different fonts. That is, I download from the internet different kind of fonts because I want my students to get used and to be able to identify different ways of writing the graphemes, all right, on the letters. Why? Because as I told you the other day, only in the Coca-Cola world, the cursive, the linked cursive exists. All around them, the cursive will disappear. All right, and as I told you, from the second term in the books of year 1, the cursive disappears. Everything is script. So this is why I want them to get used to different kind of fonts. Okay, so here what they are given is just a worksheet. This is just a paper, laminated paper, and a wipe of pen. And I told them, please circle all the s you can find there. All right, and when they finished, they came to me and they went pointing to the different ones, saying just that. All right, we can reuse the same one because as you can see there are other letters like d. So depending on the letters I want to work with them, I gave them the same card or different ones. I'll go alternating or changing them. But you can reuse them several times because different letters appear there. So you can use them once and again. All right, very cheap because you only need to laminate the resources, and it's not very space consuming because you can have 25 of these letter cards, which are more or less this thick, so you can put them almost anywhere or store them almost anywhere in class. Sorry, here you have an activity that I do with my kids sometimes as a homework, right? So I just cut out pieces from columns from newspapers, magazines, or leaflets, whatever. And I tell them, okay, what sound have we worked today? S, for example. Right, so today you're going to take this home, this little paper home, and I want you to circle or here highlight with whatever they have all the letters that you find in the text. All right, so this is a first approach that the 3-year-olds or the infant children can have with a real text. They won't understand anything in the text there. The text there is in Spanish, so you see that the idea is that they are able to identify the letter sound, not read the text at all. So you can give them a text in Spanish, in English, in German, in French, in whatever language with the same kind of lettering we have. You can use, obviously, Russian, for example, or in Cyrillic alphabet, right? But as long as the alphabet is the same as ours, what they have to do is identify the letter sounds in the text. And these texts, or these little paper articles, are very good because you can reuse them throughout all the year almost, because in all of them, different sounds appear. Okay, so you can use the same text several times, and in fact, at the end of a 44 sounds, everything is wiped off because it's full of different colors, etc. Because I recommend them to use them different colors. So when we finish with the colors, we start circling them with different colors. So at the end is full of scratches and everything in there, but it's something that they like, and it's something also that it's a home link, because parents see the kind of things we do in class. All right, I usually tell parents or send parents a note telling them, listen, we are working the sounds, please help your child to find all this here in the article, in the leaflet or whatever. Okay, grab the letter. Then the sound boxes. All right, here you have 2 boxes. Well, I have 44 boxes with all different sounds. All right, and as you see there is the phonetic symbol. That phonetic symbol means nothing for my students. They don't see it. This is just for the picture. As you can see, the lid of the box is just upside down, so they cannot see the phonetic symbol. The phonetic symbol is for me to know what the toys that are in there, to what sound they belong to. Because in this case, these 2 boxes are transparent, but I've got some others which are not. So I don't know for sure what is inside. So this is what I put the phonetic symbol on top for me to make it easier for me to see what is inside. So what we do with this activity is present the different toys that are in there, and later on children have to classify them. In this case, we are doing the minimal pair t, d. One is sound or voice, sorry, and the other one is devoiced. All right, t, d. So first we present the vocabulary. If they don't know it, we make some games and a little bit of revision of the vocabulary, and then they have to just put in the corresponding box the correct toys. Okay, those that sound t and those that sound d. So they only know in the blue box you put the t toys, and in the yellow box you put the d toys. All right, again, why these are not cards? Because if children can manipulate that is going to be more memorable for them, because they are so used to using cards in mathematics, in Spanish language, etc., etc. So when you present something different, it's going to be more memorable for them. So this is why I use a lot of realia and real toys, 3-dimensional things that they can use. If you don't have the chance, use cards. All right, no problem with that. And the majority of these toys were my girls' toys when they were younger, and some from the Kinder Bueno eggs and things like that. So, or things you can get in the Chino shop, that is very cheap things. All right, and in the sound boxes you can practice minimal pairs, for example, voiced, devoiced. You can practice I don't know, all the fricatives, for example, so they have to choose them, all the vowels, vowels versus consonants. So there is a lot of different activities you can do using them. So I reuse them almost on a daily basis. So in your specific situation at school, would you be able to do these kind of activities? Would you be allowed in your schools to do these kind of activities? Can you write it in the chat? Yes, right. Okay, so the main thing is just to think about, except the font one. Yeah, Micah, I know. That is one of the problems. Well, again, as I told you the other day, our main way to explain infant teachers, the class teachers, I mean, that we are not interested in our students or in our children to write in some or other way. That depends on them, all right, or depends on how the class teachers want them to, or want the children to write. I think that is, and in our school we have decided at the infants meetings several years ago now, that we should expose children to all kinds of different kinds of fonts. Even if class teachers are only going to be focusing on cursive and they want the children to write only cursive, that's something we're not going to fight about or struggle about, all right? That is the decision. In fact, when we do writing, the majority of times in English, in infants 4 and 5, we use wipe-off boards. So they can write the best or the better way they prefer, because nobody's going to see it, because after writing, everybody's going to wipe them off. All right, so I don't care if they use a cursive, if they use a script or whatever. With the class teachers that use the cursive, fantastic. If they want to use the script with me, fantastic too. And I think that at the end of the day, every person will adapt their handwriting to their own preferences or whatever. But I think that it's very important to expose children to any kind of fonts, because otherwise it will come a moment in which they want to be able to read anything. Because if you only present them cursive, they won't, or lowercase letters, for example, they won't be familiar with uppercase letters. So they won't be able to use a keyboard in a computer, because they won't identify the graphemes in there. All right. So I think that is very important to expose them to any kind of fonts, right? Although later on, handwriting is different, is a different matter, and that is a question of head teachers. Okay, right. Let's move on then. Can you see it now? Can you see the slide? I don't know if you're seeing the slide or not. Right.
Sí, Ángela, podemos verla. Yes.
Good. Right. Then once we've practiced a little bit, all these activities that we have seen are, as I said before, consolidation of the letter sound identification. All right. And then we move a step ahead, which is blending. Blending means, as I said before, putting letter sounds together in order to blend them and to sound out longer units. So in the first unit where they are going to blend after the independent sounds is CVC words, that is consonant, vowel, consonant words in English. Why? Because they are the easier, because CVC words in English are always transparent. That is, the sounds that are in there, the letter sounds they see, correspond to the main 44 sounds. Like, for example, you have there Ethan making mat. So here I play in different ways. The phonic fans are, these fans make with different segments. Each segment contains one of the main 44 sounds. At the beginning, I asked them just to tell me, show me t, and they put just the t. Show me and they put And then when they are a little bit more advanced, I ask them, okay, show me mat, at, mat. And they have to do it with the phonic fans. What is the problem? Some children are able to identify the 3 sounds in mat, but they don't put them correctly. That is, they put them in disorder. And you find things like tam, atama, mata. So this is why I insist again on the finger till routine. Like say, remember I said mat. Mat should be the first, and then mat. Okay, so this is going to be, the phonic fans is going to be the first writing machine they have, all right, because they are transcribing into graphemes what they are hearing, the words, the sounds they are hearing. So here they have to do segmenting, okay, because they are writing, not handwriting, but they are already writing, because they are transcribing into graphemes the sounds they have heard. So this is a way I use phonic fans almost on a daily basis, because even for independent sounds, you can another activity that I do a lot, apart from the fly swatters to consolidate the independent sounds, is with the phonic fans. You put 7, 8, or 9 segments with different letters or letter sounds, and you call out, show me p, show me s, show me e, show me e, etc., etc. And that goes very quick. The only thing is that you need 1 per child. Okay, because they need 1. But what I did was 25 phonic fans for each of them, and I use them every year. So it's something that it will take some time making them at the beginning, but then this is something you are going to use every year. Well, here you have another example. This is a commercial material, right, that is linking cubes, in which I tell them a word and they have to find them. In this case, they're a little bit more advanced there because we are introducing the grass, fish, right? And here, sometimes I tell them the words, and some other times they work in pairs and they have to dictate words to each other to create the corresponding words, right? Again, this is an activity for practicing blending and segmenting. Then here, Mrs. Wolf is hungry. So here what I give children is magnetic letters, and they have to feed Mr. Wolf with the magnetic letters. They can use them randomly, all right? But then Mr. Wolf is like in the story when he eats up Little Red Riding Hood and Grandma, we have to open his tummy, and inside the tummy there are the letters that he has eaten, right? So with those 3 letters, they have to think about a possible word they can create. And if they can create 2, much the better. So for example, here with hot, the 3 letters, sorry, ot, that they have, they could create hot, or they could create 2, for example, all right? In this case, Lovely, this girl, she created hot, and later on she created 2 because we have already seen 2 as a tricky word, okay? So some of the times they make combinations of the letters to see how many words they can create. And here I let them experiment, because they can create things like tho or to, and then we argue about if those words exist in English or not. All right, like for example, to. Have you ever heard Angela say to in class? Or have you ever Angela say tho in class? So little by little, they become conscious of some words that exist and some others that doesn't. I know that I cannot see the chat now, but I bet that someone is asking where I got the wolf, because this is something that many people ask me. That wolf is from IKEA. Okay, in IKEA, in the children's section, you have the wolf. It comes with a little granny, and the mouth is already open and is connected to the tummy, so you can feed the wolf. And we use them, especially they like it a lot because they feed the wolf and see later on how to open the tummy and create their own words. Then show me pockets. This is a pair activity in which you have one girl with a list of words, CVC words, and the other one has got a pocket in which they have 3 little pockets with beginning, middle, end. So here what they have to do is the girl who dictates has to do the blending, like, I don't know, dog, for example, or men, and the other girl had to create the corresponding word, all right, and putting the sounds in the correct place. Which one was the beginning, which one is in the middle, which one is in the end. And if they had any problem, between them, they have to come to an agreement to see where does the goes, where does the goes, and where goes the goes. Because as I told you before, not all the children know where to put the letters at first. They identify them, but sometimes they have problems in putting them in the correct order. So again, this is an activity we use to work phonemic awareness and phonological awareness, that is the correct order of the sounds in a word. Then we do work a lot with word families. I told you the other day that one of the most common ways of creating words in English is words families. That is, in words, there is a part called the onset and another part called the rhyme. The onset is the part that is variable, that is, that changes, right? And the rhyme is the part of the word that never varies. Like, for example, the family at. Then you have that, pat, hat, mat, cat, rat. All right, so by changing only the onset, that the onset can be the first 2 or 3 first letters, but the last part of the word, which is the ending, at, the rhyme, never changes, you create a full word family. And in English, this is a very common way of word formation. So we here you have 2 examples with the flowers and the clouds, in which students have different little cards in which they have different words written, and they have to read them out, sound them out, and classify them corresponding to the ending, okay, to the family they belong to. In the case of the cloud, of the raindrops, you cannot see them, but at the back of them, they have a little picture for the meaning of the word, all right? Because one thing that is very important in phonics is that first they need to read the word. That is, first they have to do the blending and decode the word. And once they do it, they turn it over and find the meaning. Obviously, with native speakers, this is not necessary, because native speakers, in the moment they are able to decode they will understand the meaning of what is in there, right? But in the case of non-native speakers, this is one of the problems I told you about, that I had to create lots of resources and materials in order to help my students understand what they were reading. So in this case, with the raindrops, they have little pictures that I got from a clip art on the internet, in which they have a peg, they have a leg, they have a cup, etc. So once they finish reading, they turn them over and they see the correct meaning of the word. All right. So at the same time they are practicing phonics, they are acquiring a lot of vocabulary. Then here you have another activity for blending, the pumpkin patch, in which here they have to do the blending and decide if they are words that exist in English and words that don't exist in English. And here what they have at the back, as you can see, there is a green tick if it is a word, or a red cross if it is not a word. So in this case, for example, I'm not interested in the blending. In this activity, sorry, in the blending, in the meaning. With this activity, I just want them to become faster in doing the blending. All right, so this is just an activity to practice pure blending. But here in the pirates game is very similar. Instead with pumpkins, we have pirates. And here, the golden coins at the back, they have the picture. All right, so here I'm interested in them doing the blending and at the same time understanding the meaning of what they are reading. All right, so it's more or less the same kind of activity. And here what I have to do is start creating words. So they have a jar full of butterflies. Red butterflies are vowels, blue butterflies are consonants. And what I ask them to do is make combinations of different letter sounds to see if you are able to build up words. All right, so they have here things like tag, hat, full, etc. Obviously, this comes as a consolidation of the sounds, of the letter sounds. All right, so a lot of practice has been done before in class. Another one is the fried eggs, which is very similar. They have to fry the eggs, and once the eggs are fried, on the egg yolk you have different letter sounds. So again, by making combinations, they have to be able to create as many words as possible. All right, it's a little bit like cifras y letras, in which people were given letters, right? And they have to use the creativity and the brains and the memory in order to create words. It is the same, but in a childish version. All right. Right, here you have the magic spoons. In this case, I gave them the rhymes and the blend and the onset. Where the rhymes changed, as you have there on the picture. They have an, ed, ob, egg, ob, at, and etc. And they have an ice cream spoon, okay, with the onset. So what they had to do was passing the ice cream spoon from rhyme to rhyme and see if they could create a word that existed in English or not. Okay, since these were 5-year-olds, some of the words have been worked throughout 3 years and 4 years old, so they are familiar with a lot of them, but some others they don't know. I don't care. If they write the word because they think it exists in English, that's fine. Once they come to me and we see, or we do the check-in, I ask them, listen, you've put here pub. Are you sure that pub exists in English? And they say no, and then I can say, yeah, listen, a pub is where people go for a drink or whatever. Or pen, do you think pen exists in English? Yes, I'm sure. So we discuss about if they think the word can exist or not. But the idea is that they start linking the onsets and the rhymes to create words. Okay. Right. So as you see, all these kind of games are manipulative games because I want my children to be in contact with the material and with the resources. All right. So as I told you before, phonics is very oral. So we don't need to spend a lot of time in writing things. At the beginning, we write things using the resources and the materials. Okay, that is using the phonic fans, they are writing, using the cubes, they are writing. They are not handwriting, but they are already writing. That is transcribing the sounds into letter sounds. So do you have this kind of manipulative resources in your class? Right. Do you teach CBC words in families or at random, Daniela? No, depending on the activity, we present them in families or at random. It depends on the activity. For example, if I'm going to work word families, I present all the word families of that specific family. If I do things like the pirates game, for example, or the patchwork, the pumpkin patch, the pumpkin patch, I present them randomly. Is color relevant? No, not in this case. When making the phonic, the only thing, Anna, the only thing for the color, the phonic fans is that depending on the color, the kind of words that they can create are more difficult. That means I introduce more difficult sounds in some fans than in the others, but that's the only thing. So, for example, in my class, the green fan is the easiest one, and the orange fan is a little bit more difficult, and then the fuchsia fan is a little bit more difficult than the orange. So it goes being a little bit more difficult. That's the only thing I do with the colors, but that is because I decided it. All right, you can do it only in color white if you like, but I prefer those colors. Right. Okay, so let's move on. Let's see what it was. Here. Right. Once we have seen then the 44 main sounds and you have consolidated it, and I said before, they have a lot of practice with them, etc. You think that you have done almost everything, that your children are able to read, to blend correctly, lots of different sounds and words and CVC words, but then problems begin. And the problem is that sometimes we find words in which one single sound is spelled in a different way. And this is something your students need to know, because in the main sounds, the sound E, the stretched E, is represented by the graph that is EE, all right? But the sound E can also be represented by the digraph EA, all right? And this is something they need to know, because otherwise when they find EA, if they don't know that that is an alternative spelling of E, they will read it EA, that is EA, and it doesn't follow the rules in this case, right? So this has to do again with phonemic and phonological awareness. And in this case, for example, we are working with the flapjacks. These two girls are working with the length of the sounds, which is something that, from the phonological point of view, is mistaken. But because usually we talk about long E and short E, and the vowels are not long and short. The vowels are tense or lax. All right, we have E, which is lax, and it is lax because all the muscles of the face are completely relaxed when you say E. And if you say E, is tense because we tense all the muscles, all the orbitals around the mouth. Okay, so we have to stretch the lips at all and tense it. E, E. So again, a trick when you want to explain your students how to pronounce E or correctly, the sun, umbrella, or the E from pig, because usually they tend to say the Spanish E, which is not as stretched as in English and not as lax as the E, for example, is to play things like, for example, we're going to do E, 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 E. If you put your hands here and you say E, you have to stretch your lips a lot and the muscles stretch to get tense, all right? So this is that you're doing it correctly. If you say E, 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 the muscles don't move at all. And if you say the Spanish E, the muscles move a little bit, so that is not the correct one. All right, so this is a trick, for example, to work with English E and the Spanish E and the English E. All right, for them to become aware of the difference that when they say pig, pig, this is Spanish E. Is pig, pig. The E is completely lax. Okay, so here they are working with long and short vowels, with tense and lax vowels. So what they have in the pancakes, in the pancakes or the flapjacks, which is the same, they have the pancakes and they have to read the word in there and decide if it is long or short. Pot sounds long or sounds short, or port sounds long or sounds short. So they have to flip it up, and on the other side they have a brown, the other side is color brown, and they have the answer written in there if it is long or short. With very young learners, I talk about long and short sounds, although for teachers, remember that the accurate term is tense and lax. Okay. Then here you have another activity with kangaroos, in which they have to look for long and short sounds. And on the kangaroo's pouch, the mommy pouch, they have got a little card with the ending, and they have to find all the joeys, or the baby kangaroos, that have words that finish with the same ending, depending on if it is long and short, for example. Another thing that we do with the sound features, for example, is what I call the crazy rhymes. And the crazy rhymes, we do them with the typical nursery rhymes. We worked in English with infants all our lives, like hickory dickory dock. And that consists in changing the ending of the lines, that is the rhyme, to create stupid rhymes. Like, for example, hickory dickory block, the mouse ran up the sock, the hawk struck one and the mouse ran down, hickory dickory rock. Okay, so what I do is, they have this little mouse with the letters. So when I go saying the rhyme, hickory dickory dock, they move the mouse up and down, and depending on what letter they match with the ending ok, they tell me. For example, hickory dickory, there you have the mouse with bl, so they call out block. I show them the word block, which is in there in the cards. Once they read it, I turn it over and they can see the blocks, so they see the meaning of the word block. And then with a post-it, I change it in the original rhyme. And once we finish with the 4 words that rhyme in the nursery rhyme, we say the rhyme again, or the crazy rhyme again, with the changes, with the stupid changes that we have made. Okay, so this is something you can do with any nursery rhyme. Here, for example, another thing that is very important with 3-year-olds also is that children are able to identify the number of letters and the number of sounds in a word. And this is going to be very, very important for later on reading and writing, because, as you know, sometimes, most of the times, I would say, in English, there are more letters than sounds in words, and that is a nightmare for later on writing. I'm thinking the magic E, for example, in which cake, make, lake, all of them have an E at the end, which doesn't sound. So when they go into writing them, they need to know that they should write an E in there at the end of the word. All right, so this is why it's very important they understand that sometimes the number of letters and the number of sounds don't coincide in words. And the way we do it in Infant 3 is using these cubes. So I give them a letter card, a word card like the one you have in there, can. So they have to blend it out and say k, can, and they have to count how many letters they can see there, and then they have to count the number of sounds they hear in can. So we go sound by sound, and for each sound they use 1 cube. So if it sounds, the cube appears. If it doesn't sound, the cube doesn't exist. All right, so in the case of can, as I told you, with the 3-year-olds, I always begin with CVC words. The majority of the times, they always have 3 cubes because they coincide. Okay. In Infants 4, for example, when I introduce the magic E, in cake, they only hear 3 sounds, although they see 4 letters. All right. So I ask them, all right, listen, how many letters can you see here? And they count them out, 4. And how many sounds sound in cake? And they count the cubes and they realize 3 cubes. Is there a coincidence between the number of sounds and the number of letters? So this is a way of working with phonological awareness. And here, this is more or less the same, but instead of with the cubes, with older children in year 1, for example, I give them the words. They have to count the sounds with the fingers and then classify them in the corresponding envelope. It's the same activity. This one would be for younger students who need more visual. It's a way of visualizing the sounds that occur in a word. And in this case, is for all the students who have already practiced the number of sounds and letters in a word, and they can do it faster on their own with not a lot of help and not the visual help. Then, as regards alternative spellings, teaching alternative spellings is complicated because there are many different spellings for words. So this is one of the ideas I use, that is using McDonald's French fry packs. I went to McDonald's and I explained them that I was a teacher. I wanted to do an activity with my kids, and they gave me some of them. And I created French fries, okay, with the words program. And what I did there was write different words with different spellings for the same sound. All right, so we knew that the main spelling of I is the first one you have in there, the IE, but then we have the I consonant E, and then we have the Y. So what they had to do was read all the words in the French fries, and they have to classify them in the correct alternative spelling. The only thing I told them to do this was, kids, remember, when you're going to read this, everything, all the vowels that are there are going to sound I. So whatever spelling you find, it will sound I, because I don't want them to sound the Y, for example, E, because it sometimes sounds E. All right. So the only indication I gave them, or the only instruction I gave them, was everything is going to sound I. So they went on reading them because the other consonants were decodable, and they classified them on the corresponding pack or packet. Rhyming is also very important. Is a part of the phonological spelling, no, the phonological awareness, sorry. So in this case, they have cookies with a picture. This is a game that I bought, but it was for native speakers. So what I did was create those the word cards, all right, because I wanted my students to read the words apart from later on identify the corresponding picture. So I made it specifically for my students, creating, in this case, not the pictures, because this game only brings the pictures in the cookies, but creating the words, right? Then at the end of the road, once you have practiced all this a lot and you introduce some tricky words and you introduce the alternative spellings, you can start asking your students to read independently. What does reading independently means? Reading on their own in a comprehensive way. That is, that understanding what they are reading. So we begin with pictograms, like they do sometimes in Spanish. So put the duck to the left of the pool, for example, the one Gonzalo's got on the table. So what they have to do was reading them, all right? The majority of the words were tricky words, the ones they have there, and the pictograms are representing the words with content. So this is why the words with content have the color or have the picture of the corresponding toy that they have to handle in order to put them in one place or another. Because here we were working with positional vocabulary, positional words, into left, to the left, to the right, next to, etc. Right? Then reading decodable books. Here you have one of my two girls reading them, different books from different publishers, from different phonics programs. But as I told you, remember that the phonics books have been created specifically for phonics programs, right? Because everything that is in there have to be worked before or in advance in class, before that the children and I are able to read the books. Okay, so in this case, these two girls, they are 5-year-olds. They have already practiced a lot in infants 3 and 4 and blending. And once they are quite sure with the blending, we start doing full sentences. But very, very easy full sentences in which everything that is in there is decodable, or if it is not decodable, it has been worked in class as tricky word or with alternative spellings, right? And then as regards writing, as I told you before doing handwriting, we do writing using wooden letters, as you have in there on the left, or cubes, plastic cubes, or foam cubes, in which children have to segment the word that they hear and they have to form it. All right, so that is writing. And then we'll go into proper handwriting with sound boxes. So here you have Ethan working on wipe-off boards in which we have squares, and each square corresponds to one letter sound. So they see, or they can count how many letter sounds are in each square. At the beginning, they only see one letter sound in each square, but when we start using the graphs like shoe or a church, they see that in one square they can have even 2 sounds, or sometimes 3. For example, in night, all right? And then you have there children doing another game in which they are combining both things, handwriting and word formation with wooden letters, right? And to finish with, remember, it is very, very, very important that you use a multisensory approach in phonics. Why? It is important that they hear the sound, that they link the sound to a keyword, that they map the sound onto a corresponding grapheme, that they do gestures to accompany them. Another game that I play with them a lot, for example, is doing things like, and they have to try and find what word I'm saying, which is sat. Okay, so it's using a sign language, really. All right, but they associate the sound to the gesture and to the story to the song they have sung, etc. So very important that the more multisensorial your activities are, much the better for children, because they are going to be much memorable for them. Okay, right. So that's everything I have to say. I'm so sorry that it's just 1:15, but because of the technical problems, I started up with a little bit of delay. So if anybody, well, I have questions here. Let me see. Right. If anybody wants to ask any question, you can open your microphone. You just type on the chat, and I'll be glad to answer. I think I've just answered a couple of them in there. Yes, Miriam, go ahead. 2 questions. One moment, because I have Maria Carmen Sanchez. Do you think we need to work on blends? They are exposure to blending constantly. As I told you, Maria Carmen, blends, what you call blends, which is what is called in phonics digraphs, like sh, pr, tr, etc. They are part of the 44 main sounds. So you have ch, you have sh, you have the, th. So you start working on blends, on consonant clusters from the very beginning. So yes, this is something you're going to work on the program from the beginning. Right. Making all those materials have surely taken you such a long time. They have. But the good things about this is that all those materials you see there, some of them I created them 10 years ago, and I'm still using them, because what I do is laminate everything, and because I want my children to use them, they are being used once and again, but they are completely new. So gladly, I can use and reuse the material. So it takes some time, especially at the beginning. So if you create materials, go slowly. Every year you say, okay, I'm going to create 4 or 5 things, next year 4 or 5 things, and at the end of 5 years, at the back of 5 years, you will have a huge amount of materials that I reuse on a daily basis. So yes, it's time consuming. I like doing it. I like making it because I don't watch the television, so what I do is just cut out and laminate at home. But they are resources you're going to use for the rest of the children's life if you want, all right, because they never tear and wear. They are for wear and tear. At what age do you start the writing with the children? Anna, properly writing, we start at the age of 4. All right. Yeah. When they are 3, we do some writing. We do some fine motor skills on the whiteboards. They have A4 lap whiteboards. All right. So we do a lot of that, or practicing that, instead of using paper. But properly, we start doing writing in phonics at the age of 4, doing little dictations like, I don't know, can, and they have to write it on the whiteboard board, or pen, or pig, etc. And in 5-year-olds, we start doing full sentences like, my cat sat on the mat, for example. All right. So properly, we begin. In infants 3, we do more helping children, or training the children's ear to identify the sounds, and practicing fine motor skills or gross motor skills, but not proper writing. Not in infants 3. And in infants 4, again, it depends on the group, it depends on the teacher, but at least we make sure that when they finish year 4, infants 4, sorry, they have written several words, CVC words at least. Okay. Pictogram cards, where can you get them? In many different places. You can even create your own pictogram cards. That is, think about sentences like, for example, my cat sits on a mat, and you can create my picture of a cat, sit on a, and picture of a mat. So you can create it on your own. However, the ones I've got in there, which are pictogram cards and toys for working positional words, they are from a shop, from an American shop called Lakeshore Learning Center. Okay, Lakeshore Learning is a teacher store that exists in America, especially in the Western Coast. And when I go there, I bring a lot of resources from there because they are very, very cheap. I've discovered lately another one which is called Oriental Trading. I'm going to write it here. Oriental Trading is a company that sells teaching resources, amongst all the things, and they send them to Spain. And I have to tell you that the resources are very cheap, and the shipping and the customs are very cheap in comparison with Lakeshore, for example. All right. Which is the publisher for the flashcards? All right, the ones I've showed you, these are Floppy's Phonics flashcards from Oxford University Press. And I like to use them a lot. As I told you the other day, in my school, we usually begin with Jolly Phonics when they are 3. But after 3-4 months, Jolly Phonics is finished, because the program is the 44 main sounds, tricky words, and alternative spellings, and that's it. What I like about these Floppy's Phonics, that is the ones that I use later on in Infants 4 and 5 and Year 1 and 2, is that you have more alternative spellings, like, for example, this, I, and here at the back, you have words for practicing the blending. All right. So if you are familiar with Jolly Phonics, you know that in Jolly Phonics there are some flashcards that you can create from the teacher's handbook, and this lot is the one in Floppy's Phonics. So you have a lot of flashcards here, and all of them have got the words at the back to do the blending. So these are Floppy's Phonics from Oxford. All right. Is there any way to get some of your materials? Will you share them somehow with us? Yeah, listen, I'm going to leave you here. Sorry. My email, and you can write me and tell me, I would like to have whatever. And some things I got them in PDF, some things I created on my own, and I can, of course, share them with you. Right. Raising phonological awareness, work on sounds and word sentences. That's it, Anna. It's very important not only working on phonemic awareness, but also in phonological awareness, because this is something that children are going to need when later they start reading and writing. Very important. Okay. Yeah, Oriental Trading has got very, very good resources. Phonics, everything, for maths, for sciences, for everything. And they send things in just 1 week, and the shipping charges and the custom charges are not that expensive. It's not very expensive in comparison with other companies in America. All right, but if you ever go to America, you can go to Lakeshore Learning. This is the company, Lakeshore Learning. They have teacher stores, and the resources are very, very cheap. For a teacher starting with phonics, with which DIY material would you start? Well, listen, basically, you need flashcards that you can create on your own, or that you can get from the internet. In fact, I don't know if you're familiar, or if you are aware that in Britain, the teaching of phonics is compulsory by law. So all schools in foundation stage, they have to teach phonics, right? So they have created, sorry, I'm going to type it here. They have created Letters and Sounds. Letters and Sounds is a program, a phonics program, that the British government has created for those schools which didn't want to spend money in buying programs like Jolly Phonics or Read and Writing, etc., etc. So there in Letters and Sounds, you can find loads of different resources for teaching phonics. So basically, I insist, it's very important to have a set of flashcards that can be commercial, or you can make them yourself, or find them on the internet, in which you have always the keywords and then the letter sound that contains or that is contained in the word of the key picture, right? Very important. So I think the flashcards are very important. And I think that the flashcards are very important, because after that you can create jingles, you can create the gestures, you can create and invent the songs. For example, in Floppy's Phonics, there are no songs. I invent my own songs for this. Okay. The phonic fans are very, very useful too. I use the phonic fans on a daily basis, every single day, because with the phonic fans, I can do revision of the sounds very quickly, because I have all my 25 kids sitting down, just facing me, in front of me. We sit in the assembly, I face them and I say, okay, show me. So everybody has to put this up. And at the same time, you are assessing them, because if you ask for and somebody shows you the, you see that they haven't understood anything, or they haven't mapped the sound correctly onto the corresponding grapheme yet. Okay, so the phonic fans are very useful. Letter tiles or letter cards, that is small cards with the letters simply like that. You can also use as basic material the cards in which you have different letters for them to find it and circle them. Okay, but the most important thing is to have a good set of flashcards with the key words and the corresponding grapheme. And then if you make the flashcards yourself, at the back of the flashcard you can write different words to practice the blending, for example. But that is vital, having a good set of flashcards. Storybooks or CDs with songs. If you buy a program or your school buys a program, much the better, because you will have in there. If not, you can just provide that with creativity and inventing, etc. But a good set of flashcards is important. For example, in Jolly Phonics, there are big books, mega big books, and I don't find them very useful, for example. Some of the teachers find them useful. But with the flashcards in Jolly Phonics, I have more than enough, because I create my own stories, etc. I do recognize that the thing that I like the most from Jolly Phonics is the songs, because the songs have traditional tunes and they are very catchy, and children get into the songs very quickly. But drawbacks, children don't like the pictures. Jolly Phonics was created in 1976, so the pictures are a bit old-fashioned and children don't like them very much. So children are more familiar with this kind of picture, which is more modern picture, like this Teddy, for example, than the snake in Jolly Phonics, right? But other methods like Jolly Phonics, like Floppy's Phonics, for example, or Phonics International, read and writing, they don't have songs, for example, but it is easy if you create them. All right, so a good set of flashcards, for me, the best. As I told you, tile letters, you can get also the letters. If you have any Scrabble game at home that is, you never play with it or whatever, you can use the letters of the Scrabble for your children to create words. You can buy some of these letters in AliExpress or Wish, that is the huge Chinese companies, which are €3 a set of 100 wooden letters for your student or for your children to create them, to create words and use them in combination, etc. Bea asks, can you mix two methods to start with? No, it's not advisable. It's not advisable, Bea, because the problem is that usually the methods are different. So, for example, I'm going to compare what in Jolly Phonics is called tricky words. In Read and Write Inc., that by Ruth Miskins, it's the red words. So what are you going to tell children? About red words or about tricky words? The presentation of such a pin in all the methods is the same. But then from the second group on, in some of them changes. So if you decide to go for a program, go ahead with it and stick strictly to the line, to that program. Is the most recommendable one. Okay. They are vintage. Yes, all my resources are vintage, absolutely. Because lately I didn't do. Well, yes, I made some new things last year, and I'm preparing new things this year. This year I'm doing new things about rhyming. But again, it's different games to practice a game the same. For example, now I'm preparing a game for rhyming, in which children have a glass of milk and a cookie, and they have to put the cookie in the corresponding glass of milk, depending on the rhyme. So it's creating new things, but based on the different things we have to work in the program, right? Okay. The Jolly Phonics pictures. Well, Maria Carmen, and my material too is quite vintage. As I told you, there are some resources from 10 years ago. Okay. Thanks. Some of the materials you can get them easily on the internet. If you just type phonics or not in Jolly Phonics, but if you type phonics for early learners, phonics for children, there are a lot of resources that many mommies in America make for their own children, because you know that in America there is a lot of homeschooling. So you can get a lot of resources for free on the internet, or by paying a little bit. In Teachers Pay Teachers, for example, you can get a lot of things. All right. And again, sometimes it's inspired by those things that I found on the internet. I create my own resources. Some of the times, if I'm not very good, or if I'm not very good as regards having free time, I buy them or I download them. It depends. I have a little bit of everything. Pinterest gives lots of ideas to work on phonics too. All right. Okay. Any other question? Right, if there are no questions, next week we are going to see more in detail how to work on these tricky parts of the phonics, which are how to introduce the tricky words, how to work with the magic, and how to develop more reading and writing. Okay, so thanks very much for attending. It was lovely to have you all here, and if you like, we'll see again. We'll meet again next Thursday. Sorry.
Okay, Ángela, thank you so much for your presentation and everything you have taught us. Just for anyone interested, we have the next webinars here in this link I'm pasting here, okay? And there you have all the information about the next webinars. And thanks, Anna, as well, for being there at the beginning of the session. And see you all next week, I hope, okay?
I hope we have no technical problems.
Sorry for that. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry about that.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Thank you, Ángela.
Okay, thanks everybody. See you next Thursday.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, bye-bye.